Hey, what's up, troopers? It's just me and Mike this time. We are here to talk about a bunch of cool lists that we're seeing with the new meta. And we're going to also be talking a little bit about a team format tournament that I played recently. We're going to do that at the end because I know that some folks that may not be into the team stuff. Some folks would even use the dreaded word homebrew, which is accurate.
Hey, I don't have any problem with homebrew stuff. Homebrew stuff is great. You may say that I have homebrewed quite a few things in my lifetime.
Well, right. I mean, you were like a big D&D campaign writer, right? So that was all homebrew.
Yep.
And would never say anything against that. I know how seriously you took those campaigns when you were writing them.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So, homebrew done well can be very fun. So we are going to talk about that. Otherwise, how you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I've got some games in with the new updates, which we'll probably talk a little bit about today in relevance to the other stuff we're going to talk about. And
Yeah. I've gotten one in. I'm about to get more in because our league is starting up at Zulu's, which is that story that Isaiah came out of that he and I were both bashing a little bit on the first time that he was on because they weren't carrying Legion.
Sure.
And now they are.
I'm sure they got to now, right?
That's right. We would have held it against them as like, hey, the world champ plays here. Just guess you couldn't find it in your hearts to carry the game that the world champion plays with, or if you don't care, that's fine. We can talk about it on podcasts and shame you and all that, but we didn't have to go there, so it's all good. All right, we're gonna do some quick shout outs. We're shouting out Prometheus 7 and also Dash, no relation to Dashes, as you refer to yourself,
or as some people like to say, Dash Z. But
maybe Dash Z across the pond.
Yeah.
But it is Dashes, right? That's
Dashes. Yes.
Yeah. Just in case anybody out there was wondering. So we appreciate that. I'm also going to re-put out an APB. We are no longer looking for folks for another Legion podcast. That's all I have to say about that right now. But we are still on the lookout for anybody who wants to work with TFT as someone doing painting videos with us. We have a channel pre-built with a pretty decent subscriber base. We're inching towards that 8,000, Mike. If we ever get to 10,000, I was looking this up today. They used to give you like you didn't get a physical thing, but you got some kind of an electronic designation of you're in the bronze tier.
Sure.
Of course, YouTubers have gotten so much bigger than that since then. That
it's like 100,000 or something.
Yeah, now 100,000 is the silver tier, and the gold is 1 million, and platinum is 10 million, et cetera, et cetera. So, anyway, we ain't ever gonna get there.
My man.
Hey, if Legion becomes the sort of game that would get even 1 million people to subscribe to the channel, then Asmodee is going to be like, they're going to be very happy campers, and there's going to be all these news stories about how they've wiped away that Embracer debt.
Yeah.
In less than half a year.
We'll help you. We're on our way.
We'll help you out, Asmodee. We're gonna lift you up from the bottom.
I'm doing my part.
That's right. Yeah, that's why we're here, Mike. But anyway, we are looking for somebody who wants to do painting videos, and we are also looking for folks who maybe would want to do a Shatterpoint podcast, Mike. We are in a place where I'm looking to sort of grow the Fifth Trooper community. We, as I mentioned before, changed ownership. Some things have opened up in terms of the finances we're getting from the patrons, and also from a small amount of YouTube ad money. I'm just going to talk about those things super briefly. I promise not to do this every week. So the Patreon, the reason we have it is because there are some costs in keeping this up, but more importantly to me from a philosophical perspective is that the people that are helping us out, we like to give them some compensation in terms of sort of rewarding the work that they're putting in, and just to engender a sense of professionalism, because we want to like be providing that professional service that people keep coming back to, and that it is through the Patreon that we're able to do that. This is not a money-making operation for me, as I like, though I now own this, the like any cash that goes around is based on like the amount of work you're putting in, and that includes me. So we're sort of running it like a co-op, and if people like what we're doing, then honestly, the first thing you could do is at least click that subscribe button so that we can get to that bronze tier, Mike.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be that guy either to like say that every week. I'm also not going to be that guy. I was talking about YouTube ads before. In trying to put up like one mid-roll ad, I accidentally like clicked the button that made ads come up like every 5 minutes on one of our recent videos, and somebody called me out. They
intentionally make it very confusing
and
to
exactly
accidentally do that. Yeah.
So I have turned that off completely at the moment, and so just like the pre-roll like before, because I'm telling y'all, I am never gonna be that guy, and you know what that guy is. That guy is many guys on YouTube, where you like I can't watch a friggin' Civ 7 leader tier list, a game that I realize that you don't care about, Mike. But I can't watch it. Like, there's no Civ 7 people out there, at least that I was able to find, that aren't shoving an ad in your face every 5 minutes.
Just get ad block, Evan. Come on.
I can you have that on my phone though? On my iPhone, I don't think I can.
Yeah, I don't know.
You probably need some lead hack stores that I don't have in order to do that. But like, you know, I listen to a lot of YouTube videos while I like do dishes and stuff. Like, and I do that through my phone. And you know, I'm just telling y'all, we're not going to be that guy. We want people to enjoy listening to the stuff that we make. This is never going to be paying any of our mortgages. We are just trying to make good stuff, and that's it. Thank you for listening to my spiel. I am sorry.
We'll see where Evan feels in a year.
I promise that in a year it's still not going to be a money making operation. It never will be. It is. I am hoping that it grows, and if the Patreon grows, then we would like be finding more stuff, more shows, more ways to offer people the good bits. So, moving on from that, we have a couple other sort of different public servicey things, which is to say that the Evergreen Open, Mike, that is our local GT here in the Seattle area in scenic Bellevue, Washington, next to a newly minted light rail stop that doesn't actually work yet, but don't worry about that. They haven't connected the lines, Mike. It's listen. If you want to hear more, then you'll have to check out our After Dark episode about the state of public transportation in Seattle, Washington. Only patrons will get access to that. I'm just kidding. That doesn't exist. But Dragonflight GameCon is the place. Evergreen Open is the name of the tournament. It is between August 22nd and August 24th. So coming up pretty soon. Izzy Gambliel is the organizer. I am merely one of the judges, but of course we'll have all the good stuff from our neighbors up here with Atomic Mass Games, and it's just a nice smaller con just in general. Like, there is a vendor booth that's it's like the size of two medium ballrooms, so sure, it's not Adepticon, but it's a good time. Yeah, nothing is Adepticon. It's definitely not Gen Con. Jeez, like going there twice was enough for me. But it's a nice one. It's in a nice part of town. There's plenty to eat and do in that area. Bellevue is sort of like the conference destination in the Seattle area. So it's a cool place to do stuff like this. So yeah, check that out. And then Mike, you have an announcement as well.
Yeah, so PAX Unplugged is in Philadelphia, November 21st to the 23rd. Our friend Nick Bodnar will be running it. Once again, he took a year off, I think, last year from running it,
Yeah.
but he's back at the helm, and his tables will be ready and raring to go. One of the nice things about PAX is that there is no event fee. You just have to pay to get into the con. And
That is nice.
what is particularly nice about it this year is that the way that Nick has set it up is that the first day will be a Swiss tournament, and there will be a cut to like top 8 or top 4, depending on how many people are in the tournament, to the following day. And everybody that doesn't make the cut will be able or eligible to just enter a new tournament that I believe he's running under the recon rules the following day. So, and you don't have to pay extra because you've already paid to get into the con. So you're all good.
Sick.
Yeah. So check it out, November 21st to the 23rd. PAX is always a good time. I would recommend booking your hotel earlier rather than later, as the earlier hotels are definitely better.
Yeah. PAX Unplugged it's a big event.
It's very big, and it's very. I would almost recommend people bring like earplugs. Or
it's a little loud there, huh?
It's very loud. It's all in one big room. It's like an Adepticon room on steroids because it's like like magic.
Right.
Everything's all in one room.
Yeah, because it's more than just minis. It's like all sorts of stuff. Yeah,
it's all sorts of stuff. The vendor hall is in the main room, and it can there's a lot of like dividers and stuff in there from like the vendor booths and stuff. So there is some like sound deafening, but it can get very loud. So, but yeah, go check it out.
But it's gonna have Nick Bodnar and his tables, and dude, that's reason enough to go to any tournament.
150%, and PAX is a pretty well touted tournament at this point. There will be a lot of good players there. So
yeah, definitely check that out. Speaking of tournaments, Mike, we have sort of our first set of what I would call larger tournaments. 2 of these were multi-day. One of them was single day, but it was 28 players, so pretty good size of an event, even though it was a single day event. We are going to talk about that as well. But it so happens that I guess in countries aside from the U.S., they're a little bit quicker on the draw in terms of getting big tournaments in with these new rules. That's probably just the way that things shook out in terms of the dates. We're going to have some more.
That's the way the cookie crumbled situation.
Yeah, exactly. But as it turns out, so we have one in France, one in England, and one in Quebec that we're going to talk about. Where we each picked out some lists to talk about in these tournaments, and we did so in a way that runs the gamut of all 4 of the real factions, and then the one pseudo faction, to give respect to the opinions of the official opinions of Fifth Trooper as well as Atomic Mass.
These aren't opinions.
It's not opinions; they're facts. Yeah, Shadow Collective is not a faction, but we are covering a very notable Shadow Collective list from this group. So let's just get right into it, Mike. We're going to start with the Open Ile-de-France. This was a GT over in Ile-de-France in France. So this was 46 players, and basically Mike and I picked from amongst either the winning lists or the X and 1 lists in the multi-day tournaments to sort of highlight a list that really caught our eye. So Mike, let's go ahead and start with yours. Whose list did you want to highlight from this tournament? And we will put all the links to these, to the Longshanks in the show notes for everybody to look along with us, by the way.
Yeah, so I wanted to highlight Alric 88's list. Sorry, I don't know what your real name is. But that is what you put in Longshanks, so that's what you're getting.
Yeah, for anybody out there, if we ever shout you out on this podcast, we are going to say what's in Longshanks unless we happen to know you personally. Yeah. If you do happen to win a tournament and you want your real name to be used, then you can always reach out to either me or Mike, and we'll say it. but we only have so much time to do the research. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Tell me about Alric 88's list.
Yeah, so it's an Empire list. It went 5-1, which is a pretty good competitive result for Empire these days. So maybe hoping to see a bit of a resurgence. It's a pretty standard Empire list, except it's got some interesting core units in it.
Wouldn't have been standard a month ago.
Right? So we've got Darth Vader, Din Djarin, 2 Riot Control Squad.
Hey,
2 Imperial Snowtroopers. And all 4 of those core units have Imperial March, which is interesting. We've got a Stormtrooper Super Squad with a T-21. Rounding out the core at 5. So all of the core here having... being affected by the changes in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, you're right. All 5 of the core were affected by point changes.
Yeah. Which is kind of a big deal. And then it's rounded out by three dewbacks with Into the Fray and a couple flamethrowers. So, look, the Darth Vader Din Djarin triple dewback shell, not a super new thing. It is what it is. Like, that's some of the best Imperial units before, and I think we're going to find that they're probably pretty high up the ladder after.
Right.
But I found that this list being built around the core and also not having Callus in it were both pretty big statements. And I would like to just, everyone in their head, I'd like to make a mental note on the Ion Snowtroopers right now. And I want to circle back around to that after we've talked more about these lists later.
Yeah, I agree on that point. I think there's a decent amount to talk about with Ion Snows, with Imperial March.
Sorry. Yes, but we're going to talk about a different aspect of that unit.
Okay. I'm excited.
Got nothing to do with Imperial March.
All right, well, I'm excited to hear what you mean.
I agree that unit is very good. I want to talk about some of the things that I've noticed
sure
in these lists and in my personal games based on it.
This is a neat list. I think the thing that stands out to me is that one of the dewbacks has no weapon. It does have Into the Fray. And can you remind me, Mike, how much would that be just like a standard Fray plus naked dewback? Is
74.
So that's 74. So like that's the thing that sort of like stands out to me is the like, a naked dewback certainly isn't bad, but could that be Callus instead? Just like Callus
it could be
something else.
But at the end of the day, like I do think a dewback, even naked, is probably a better take than Callus. Relentless is a really big deal.
Yeah.
The dewback is actually pretty fast, particularly with Darth Vader.
Yeah.
You care a lot less about spurring. I do think but
Darth Vader can only compel core. And that was the other thing I was going to ask about, is that it doesn't have Krennic or DTF, and so the core are not going to have a problem getting where they want to go, but the dewbacks could be suppressed.
Yes. I think that the one thing that I am a little bit sus on with this list is the lack of a second commander. I definitely think Imperial lists up until now have really been wanting a second commander. I would be interested to know how that impacted Alric's games, from like kind of figuring out how to work around that, because all of these core units are also Courage 1.
I think that with a list like this, you can get away with, like, let's say on Breakthrough, for example, you could have a Vader plus all the core side, and you could have a triple dewback plus Din side.
You definitely
and the triple dewback plus Din side, that could be your defense side, so to speak. The one that's more focused on, let's not allow my opponent to capture my breakthrough point and just like sort of survive long enough, maybe even score a bounty off a Din. And then the other side, you're just marching. Like I could see that working, and you're exactly right that two commanders can feel really necessary if you're going to have a like widely dispersed Courage 1 core, and then I'm playing Blizzard Force, and I did end up going with Veers in addition to Vader in my Blizzard Force because of the fact that because I have like E-webs in the list that I'm not going to be able to rely on doing a ton on their own if they're left out there, that I would probably want to split up my core, and therefore I wanted Veers in there. But this list, as long like they could all stick near Vader, and that's probably why it worked.
Yeah, I definitely think it's you definitely have to stick near Vader, I think,
Right.
in this list.
With the core anyway, yeah.
With the core, for sure.
Yeah.
Din obviously can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
The dewbacks to a lesser extent, though. Dewbacks getting...
They can panic.
Panic is like a thing that, it's not super often, but I wouldn't call it a rarity either.
Yeah, yeah. You just got to be careful about your spurring.
Yeah.
Like don't do it don't spur when they're a range 1 move and chomp away.
Yeah.
Because
just take what you have. And
exactly.
Be happy with it. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's a cool list. And I think that we should also just mention now that this the Ile-de-France GT was won by Antoine Grenet, a very well-known player. He for folks who maybe have heard his name before, he is the guy who took Ewoks to, I forget exactly which place. It was top 10 at Adepticon 2 years ago.
Yeah, I believe he might be a little bit widerly known as ZA, I think.
Yeah,
TZA.
TZA, yeah.
Yep.
And so he's like who people are talking about if they say that French Ewok guy who wins a bunch of tournaments. Like that's him. But this time he was not running Ewoks. He was instead running the opposite of Ewoks, some might say, which is Tempest Force. And I think it is worth talking about his list too, because he went 6-0, and he his list is not on its face super different. And I was actually, Mike and I were talking before the podcast about how I was thinking, it added some strike and fade speeders, but is it all that different from a Tempest list that you could have run before? And Mike, what did you point out about like why it's actually different?
I was like, well, the speeders are way cheaper. The speeders, even with strike and fade, are cheaper than they were before.
Yeah,
so
the 5 point cheaper with strike and fade.
Yeah, you got added utility
before.
there.
Yeah.
I suspect that his list has like +1 activation in contrast to lists that were trying to do what he was doing before, and the speeders are way less fragile. At least the first, until you use strike and fade, right? So, 3 ATSTs plus 3 speeder bikes plus 4 scouts is like, that's a lot of potential damage on turn 1 and turn 2 that you can't kill it all.
Yeah. So it's 11 acts, and half of those acts or more than half of those acts are completely unsuppressible and panicable, and then half of those are zooming around, and they get a get out of jail free card in the form of strike and fade when it comes to their positioning, and then the other half are friggin' ATSTs. And so that can be tough to deal with when you combine that with area terrain, which I think is a big advantage for scouts, at least on a lot of tables, being able to recon into the zone that you want to be.
Well, I think the introduction of strike and fade in this list actually allows you to set up an ATST wall, move through the ATST wall with the speeder bikes.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder if he was doing that.
Shoot, and then move twice and probably be behind the ATSTs again.
Yeah, so if anybody is listening in France, then, or if anybody has some inside knowledge in terms of like how it was run, there weren't any stream games, so we would be relying on that. But please do let us know, because we would be curious about whether there were any spicy tactics that went along with this list. It's scary enough on its own.
It is. But I think that like that tactic specifically could be like pretty tough to deal with if you don't have a way to take the ATSTs down consistently on turn 2 or turn 3. Like basically you're like, you get the strike and fade alpha in, and then you just get to do it again next turn. And like, if all those speeder bikes attack twice at full health, I think you're happy with that. Yeah, regardless of if they die at some point, right?
It's a it reminds one of Blizzard Force, some might say.
Yeah.
Because it's true that back then you were talking about 8 attacks over the course of 2 turns, but they were in danger between those 2 turns, and here you're talking about 6 where they would theoretically not be in danger between them. It's probably pretty similar output to what it used to be. And now cover is not as good as it used to be, so it could be a rough combo. But yeah, congrats to Antoine on his win. I am going to talk about one of the Republic lists. This was played by, I apologize to this gentleman if I mess up your name, because he's from Belgium, but is Enguerrand Tash. You can let me know how much I screwed that up. But he was playing a new variety of 6-act clones list, Mike.
He was.
They're back with Yoda, who got 20 points cheaper, but and not only 20 points cheaper Yoda, but he put Tranquility on there, which I will say, to give at least a mild mea culpa, that this is one situation where I do see the value in it, especially in the sense of, like you have fewer squads to worry about. It is easier for super squads to toss out a guy to be range 1 of Yoda, to just like sort of be there, compared to a standard squad. And then C, one of the things that can mess you up in super squads is that you like tank a whole bunch of shots, but then you find yourself to have 8 suppression, and you do your indom roll, and you can get all the way down to 2, assuming you're not 5s. But if you're suppressed at all, then it takes away your move shoot, and that can be a big deal. Or it takes away your double move charge with the charging ones, and so that upgrade would reduce the risk of that happening generally. And like I said, it's easier to do, so I do see the value in it. Other than that, the Yoda, he has Trusted Agent to be able to give Bad Batch an order when you need it to have it most, which was actually sometimes an issue in the 6-act clone list with Anakin. There's obviously you could obviously do that with Rex also, but then that would take away improvised orders. In this list, you have 2 command slots, so you can have improvised orders and Trusted Agent. Very nice. And then otherwise, the clone lists are pretty much they're pretty similar to the ones on Ollie's list, but his third clone, so to speak, the one that doesn't have 5s or Ahsoka, his has a clone commander instead of a clone captain, which I actually see the value, because it was sometimes tough to get that clone captain orders on the turns that really mattered with the Ollie version of the list, because you were often doing like Anakin 1 pip or Rex 1 pip to try to get some stuff done. But on this version of the list, you don't have to worry about it. Like, you just have an extra Surge Token, it's an extra Inspire, and it probably doesn't really take away from the efficiency all that much. Plus, Yoda is cheaper than Anakin, and so he gives a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to those points. But what do you think about 6-act Yoda compared to 6-act Anakin, Mike?
So I think, kind of just like diving back to the Captain Commander comparison,
sure,
it's also notable that Yoda's command cards, 2 out of the 3 of them actually hand dodges to the clones already, so the Captain is significantly less necessary to turn on Ahsoka's block.
For sure.
I actually think that Yoda is probably a better unit in that slot than Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Yoda does a lot more than Anakin to actually support these mega squads, either because of Luminous or Relentless on the 2-pip. Like the Relentless 5 squad shot, or
Relentless 5s is nuts. 5 super squad, it's so nuts.
It's like pretty frightening. I think the drawback that it brings is I actually think the scouting party decision is a little bit harder, in that you kind of want a scouting party Yoda, but before you were like, I'm gonna scouting party 2 of the big core units,
Well, you were always gonna do Bad Batch. pretty
Sorry,
much.
yes, Bad
Yeah.
Batch and one of the big core units.
Yeah,
Now
exactly.
you kind of have to make like a harder decision
Right.
on like it's gonna be Bad Batch and Yoda, or am I gonna like you kind of want your 5 squad to shoot turn one, I think. Um,
Yeah.
like that's a pretty big shot to be just like tossing into the wind. When you only have, you know, the potential for like 4 shots a turn. um,
I will say though that if Yoda's double moving on round 2, if he double moved round 1 with speed 1, and if he's speed 3 on round 2, he can get to the middle objective like
yes,
that.
for sure. It definitely. I don't know. There's some like timing things that are a little
For sure, yeah.
bit weird there. And I mean, Yoda's not that far off Anakin as far as like killing stuff once he's there. It's getting him there that's the problem, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yoda's not moving 3 times at speed 3.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And then afterwards, he's kind of rooted in place often. So
yeah, yeah. But
I don't know.
I like it a
I
lot.
dig it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that this is a situation where tranquility is interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I definitely I cruised a bunch of these lists from all 3 of the tournaments, and I'm a little bit upset at the amount of people that are playing the 6 act thing. I'm gonna be honest.
In what way? Tell me. Tell me.
I just I don't know. If I wanted to watch my opponent play the game, I'd go play Warhammer. You know, like I
But the 6 act player is putting it on themselves to watch their opponent play the game, rather
no
than the
doubt.
opposite.
I guess my concern is that like I am just hoping that the way to play Republic competitively does not turn into this. That's my fear.
But
And if it ends up being that way, I'm gonna switch factions. like I don't know. That's just not how I want to play the game, and that's not how clones have traditionally played the game. And
I
I don't know.
will say, since you made that point, that the number, like the runner up in the tournament, the one that lost to Antoine in the final was not a 6 act list. It did have Yoda in it and Cody,
Yeah.
and so that one is worth shouting out as well, especially because it featured 2 ATRT flamers and then 1 Radagnas Fluttercraft, Michael, with the NAF gunner.
Okay.
Yeah, not even in the battle force, which is awesome. And it didn't even have strike and fade, which means that player obviously knew what they were doing with Fluttercraft. It did also have an Echo Strike team, so that's interesting. And then it had two full arcs with medics, which is of course the correct choice, Richard Lavery. If you're listening out there,
Yo, whoa, man. I'm not sure I had time to. Maybe I like blacked out when that got said last episode, or I don't remember what happened.
we're not looking to start anything, Mike. I was just trying to get a quick dig in. we're just gonna move on.
All right, all right.
Yeah, he's not Brian Bear. It's not like he deserves to be called out for his behavior.
Sure.
You know, it's just a difference of opinion, and you know, people are allowed to have that. So, and then otherwise there was a couple of 3 clone troopers with shotguns. Shotguns is definitely the way to go these days. One of them did have a medic, but it's a nice, like, I like this list as well because this had a nice variety to it, right? 2 commanders, no operatives, but it had 3 core, it had 3 special forces, it had 3 support. It felt like a very regimented Republic army. So I mean, hey, that did well too. I think we're okay for now, Mike.
We'll see. I want to
yeah.
again. I want to sticky this, and it's gonna come back to the point I'm gonna
for
make
sure,
later.
for sure.
Um,
We'll stick it.
yep.
That if all the guard players turn to 6 act, then you're going to be putting on your knapsack and walking sadly down the train tracks towards some other destination.
I actually want to sticky the ATRT Radagnas Fluttercraft portion
Ooh.
of this conversation. That is gonna. Yes,
Okay.
we're gonna stick it, and we're
all
gonna.
right, so
I'm gonna. We're making points here, and we're gonna bring it all full circle at the end.
for those of you who are keeping the posted notes, like, you know, and taping them to your monitor as you listen to this or onto your phone, and probably looking like a madman to any passersby, so far we've stickied the Ion Snowtrooper thing and the double flamer with Radagnas thing, and I am very eager to find out why we're sticking these things.
Yep.
But before we get there, let's talk about tournament number 2. So this was the Dark Sphere Grand Tournament, obviously also a Grand Tournament. This was in the United Kingdom in Greater London. Mike, is there a Lesser London?
I have no idea.
Is there...
I'm not gonna pretend to. I feel like when we
London?
had some of the UK guys on, where I was given a lesson in like all the different nations in the UK and stuff. And
have you forgotten it all, Mike? Do we need to teach you?
I haven't forgotten it. But the point I'm trying to make is that them in geography and like how they label where everything. I don't know. It seems unnecessarily complicated.
They like to say that things are upon things or on things. Like if it's on a river, it's like Stratford upon Avon. I could have told you that by looking at a map. Yeah, why don't you just call it Stratford?
Yeah.
Come at us, United Kingdom. I guarantee they will. They don't take kindly to these offenses. Anyway, so for this tournament, Mike, I am here to highlight the non-faction. That is to say, the one and only Lila Claire, who just like the shark in Jaws or the T-1000. I'm not sure what sort of like Spielberg/Cameron metaphor. Maybe the Alien Queen is the best metaphor for like the just like the trudging, unstoppable force that is Lila Claire. And this time she was back to Shadow Collective the same way that she sort of like entered the scene with when she had her Pink Suns list. Things have changed since then, Mike.
Sure.
This list has no Black Suns in it, and instead it's actually sort of the negative version of her worlds list in 2023, right? Because that was Maul and Black Suns and buses.
Yep.
And so this list is Pikes and Gar Saxon and one Super Commando and swoops. So
basically everything else.
Exactly. It is the film negative of her world's runner-up list, which is awesome because she went 5-0 at this tournament with it. And so like I said, it's got 3 swoops with Strike and Fade and Spotter Uplink, Mike. Really making use of those new upgrades. I would say that of all of the potential Spotter Uplink targets that can be meleeed, the swoop is probably the one that makes the most sense because of the nature of it, that it does have to be getting in there and get close to do stuff, which is not what you want to be doing with like an Imperial speeder bike, for instance.
If you got an extra 9 points, it seems pretty
good. Exactly. And so that probably gave plenty of sharpshooter shots, or maybe even sharpshooter 2 shots, to her 6 Pike Syndicate foot soldiers with Disruptor and extra foot soldier that are in her army, which is a pretty good buy. That really sort of squeezes the value out of the points changes, which is because it does not use the Capo Mini, but instead uses the much cheaper foot soldier Mini, which means that this unit, which was already like kind of cheap, got 4 points cheaper. It doesn't have access to the surge token, but it does have access to, I believe it's a cached aim, right? On the foot soldier, which is not bad. And then on top of that, she did have 2, like, of course, if you're running without the capo in the unit, you have to have at least one of the capo units themselves to keep them from panicking with one deca shot. She did have 2 of those with improvised orders and lead by example. She even tossed an environmental gear on one of the capos because she had 2 points left, which I think is a pretty funny way to spend those 2 points. But with 2, and if you're confident in your abilities to keep them safe, which I'm sure that she is, I can see it. And then to finish it all off, there was a Gar Saxon with the Flamer and his gun, and then a Mandalorian Super Commando with the Marksman and the Jetpack Rocket, which is kind of the default Super Commando build. What are your first thoughts when you see this, Mike?
I mean, I think something like this has been kind of like
percolating
possible for a long time. I think the adjustments to Pikes make it
Thir-
much
this
more
is
reasonable.
13 activations, by the way, Mike.
Yeah, it's a
That's
lot.
not bad.
And pike units are still look, they're not what they once were.
No, of course not.
But
4 points cheaper.
they're 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 still pretty,
They
you might
shoot
kill
good.
one or two, but like,
Yeah.
the rest of them are still blazing, and Saxon giving them compel, takes away the non-capo unit's biggest hurdle, which is taking 2 actions every turn when it's suppressed.
For sure.
So, and I think you said she had lead by example too, right?
Yeah, on one of the capos
Which
to mitigate the issue, exactly.
which goes a long way to fixing it on a couple of units that might be having issues, So, yeah, I think it's probably not nearly as aggressive as we're used to seeing from Lila, but I think this is looks like a good gun line to me that probably has a lot of play under the new edition.
Yeah. This just looks really solid, to be honest with you. The only true, like, quote, weak points in the list are the 2 capos. And I say weak in the sense of like easily killable units. But you do have the wiggle room of, like, if one of those gets smoked, you have the other one as backup before you get into like a really bad problem with your pikes panicking at low suppression values. But in order to get there, you would have to be pushing past just the large amount of firepower that this list has. And you just think about it, that in these situations where she was able to get 2 swoops within range 1 of like some nice juicy targets, then all of a sudden you have 6 pike units and 1 super commando, and then also Gar Saxon, who normally does he have sharpshooter 1 on his own? I don't even remember.
I'm not even sure.
But like,
I would have to look.
A Gar, like, giving him sort of like a true sniper shot, so to speak, with his rifle or whatever he wants to do, and like, it's a lot of guns, and those spotter uplinks would add up to those guns having a lot of extra value that they would normally be missing on, a third of their dice pool. Yep. And now they wouldn't be anymore. That's pretty cool. And then plus the capos, as long as they're alive, are feeding an aim or two to the an aim and a dodge, I should say, on most turns to the foot soldiers, like the ones that have the healthiest units could get the tokens to make the most out of their non-surging dice. It's really solid. I think this is like a cool template that people should be inspired by, in my opinion. We will see if it happens. Otherwise, I think it's worth pointing out that in this tournament, it was like there were surprisingly no Empire Rebel players. It was only 24 people, so like not the best sample size, but the foreign ones were a couple Cis players, a couple Gar players. I will just shout out quickly that one of them was Yoda Padmé, the other one was Cody Padmé. And then they did both also have Bad Batch in the list. It seems like we're seeing Bad Batch. We might be seeing Bad Batch a little bit more often. You were mentioning this earlier today, Mike. Why do you think that would be?
I think whether or not you think arcs are too expensive or not,
right?
I think arcs are expensive enough that you're just like, okay, whatever. We're not doing the arc thing anymore. We're doing the Bad Batch thing. And maybe you're still taking a couple arcs or whatever, but Bad Batch is just, I think, for its points, become a much more efficient unit in the, like, kind of in the tunnel that you're looking at these specialist units in, right? You're like, okay, we've got arcs, we've got commandos. They're essentially the same points cost now. And it used to be that, like, you could take 2 of those units and for the price of Bad Batch. That's not really true anymore.
Now it's like 1.75, and so the math doesn't feel as clean.
I also think that from that standpoint, I think that's another reason that we're also seeing these 6-act lists, and kind of why I was being talking a little bit concernedly about like where Republic is kind of headed is that our specialist units are getting awfully close in price to these like big super squad units in that like there's less than an activation cost between the two. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, okay, this super squad is like 130 points and arcs are like 90, 92, depending on what you're taking. Clone commandos are 100. And you kind of like look at those two squads. You're like, okay, I can take a squad that's got 10 dudes in it or a squad that's got 4, and it's only like 30 points more. And it's kind of like, and to be clear, I don't think super squads are overcosted.
Right. Um,
It's a weird. I'm not sure like what the solution is there because I'm not also convinced that like I do think commandos are probably like a teensy weensy bit overcosted, but I don't know how to fix those comparison points. You know.
Republic Republic does feel in a place like obviously it can still compete. We are going to be getting to some of like the bigger statistics like win rate stuff next week when we have a little bit more data to look at the front end of this. But from a list building perspective, the arc increase it has made things feel more smushed. And like you said, a lot of the other units are still on the expensive end. I think that the marksman probably will help with that. I think that the generic Jedi will definitely help with that.
Maybe
Or
I don't
like
think that
more likely will help with that compared to the marksman, which
I
is
actually
just
think
another core.
I think the marksman will probably help more.
Interesting.
Because I think that assuming that it's in a reasonable price point that's
Yeah.
around where clone
Yeah.
infantry is, I could see like 6x core being kind of like a thing again, which
Yeah.
could bring the general like price point of from average Republic unit down a little bit. I think the
True.
Jedi is likely gonna be in like the Ahsoka price range, right? Like I think like 110 is like reasonable, and that's kind of what we're like averaging out for a lot of these units to be already, right?
But
Like
that would open things up, Mike, because everybody's putting Ahsoka in their core instead of in the commander
sure,
slot.
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah,
Embarrassment of riches, I guess.
I suppose. I
Yeah.
suppose that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, this is why people listen, Mike, so that they can fill the glass halfway and then dump the glass out.
Yeah, I think all of that is to say that I think Republic's in just like a very weird balancing position.
It's weird.
Internally.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that there's like an issue externally, but it just
right.
feels weird to build a Republic list right now.
It's it's smushed. The points are smushed, and so I'm excited for those to be opened up a little bit. I'll mention real quick that Sam Pig D was the Yoda player, and then Tim Barker was the Cody player. We also had Tima, Alexinko, and Lloyd Turner, both playing CIS triple deca lists. One was an EXD, one was a double aqua. Neither of them, I mean, so obviously the XD didn't, but the double aqua was actually a just like Kalani double aqua with a couple of Magnas, and then a whole bunch of E5S battle droids. But guess what? My droids are still good.
Yeah, let's sticky that.
Not, yeah. Okay, we're going to sticky that too. So far, to recap, we have droids are still good. We have Ion Snowtroopers, and we have double ATRT Radagnas Fluttercraft combo in Republic. I am just dying to know where these stickies are going to lead us. Okay, but let's and I forget whether I did mention, but just yeah, El Bragor was the runner-up in Open Ile-de-France, just to make sure we don't talk about this without naming the people who use them. Last, we are going to talk about the Abyss, the Tournoi. Hang on, I'm gonna screw this up. Tournoi DT.
I didn't even try.
That is tournament of the summer. I know that, but I don't know whether it's DT or DT. Somebody will tell me. I'm not worried about it. So, Mike, tell me about the winning list, which was played by Owen Evans.
Yeah, so it was a Ahsoka Sabine, No commander list, and by no commander I mean the commander was Shurgrav, Sir Gav. Sorry. Uh,
Sorry, that was reminiscent of Evan Blores. What was it? It was instead of Shiro and Blaze. What did it was Churro and Blaze.
Churro and Blaze. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
Honestly, that still cracks me up. Anyway, tell me about Suregraph.
Shurgrav sounds better. I got to be honest. So this is so it's got Ahsoka Sabine. 3 Rebel troopers, 2 with MP-57 Ion troopers and captains.
Good choice.
That.
Jesus, I'm going to type these down.
Yep. 2 Mandalorian resistance with Beskads, prepared supplies, and jetpack rockets. A Clan Ren with the same loadout, minus the duelist, obviously. And 2 AA-5 speeder trucks, 1 with Ryder Azadi, 1 with Shriv, and 2 both with door gunners and unorthodox tacticians and quad lasers. So these are like combat buses, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
10 activations.
Yeah.
Which is significantly less than a lot of Rebel lists these days. Sabine's got some interesting upgrades here. Extra supplies for the electro grappling line, which we talked about on a mini, I think, that maybe isn't out yet. So, woohoo.
Yeah,
Sabine's
look forward to more TFT minis. Now with production values, thanks to Jacob Kemp.
Yep. And then Ahsoka's got Strike Team Leader here. So the cool thing about this list, I thought, was that there's basically 2 retinued Mando squads in this list, but one is attached to Ahsoka and the other one's attached to Sabine. So you can kind of have 2 hit squads instead of like centering it all on Sabine, which I thought was kind of cool. And I think, we've been talking about the potential for door gunner AA-5 speeder trucks with the notorious Brian Bear at length over the past few weeks. So sort of unsurprising to see them here. But, definitely a cool list. Mando's back on the menu, it seems, which is also, I think...
Sure does seem that way.
I will say I got to play against a Mando list over the last week, and I really think that the additional extra dodge token on a second Mando unit is a really big deal. Just turning on duelist and nimble and just it's pretty good.
If you build the list right, it functionally becomes sort of similar to independent dodge, except it's independent dodge plus defend, because it doesn't actually matter whether they have an order or not.
Yeah.
And the reason why that matters so much is the fact that it's pre-activation. They always have it. You don't need to try. And even with this list has 3 Mando squads, like Clan Ren, and 2 standard ones, but it also has Shriv, who can give a third one out when he activates.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to shoot at any Mando squad without a dodge token, which is usually what you want to do if you're actually trying to take one out, then you either need to kill Sabine, kill Ahsoka, or shoot the Shriv target before Shriv activates.
And they have prepared supply. All of them have prepared supplies to as a backup fail case.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Which would probably be pretty frustrating for an opponent. It would be hard to kill. The only easily killable unit in this is the naked rebel troopers, which is almost certainly going to be hiding or holding back, not doing anything. The captain Ion Core, they're killable, but it takes a little bit of effort. It's still 6 minis, and they also can't. They can dodge suppression once per game,
and they're likely to have a dodge token too.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is it's a new. It's a template for Rebel list that I think a lot of players out there wanted to work for years.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. The idea of Ahsoka and Sabine and a bunch of Mandos are doing something that feels thematic for the Rebels show, with the available Rebels characters that are out there, which is only 2 of them, I think. is something that people have wanted to do for forever. And thanks to Amir, what does this list have? I mean, it's got door gunners, which is new, and then on top of that, it's about 75 points worth of cuts. Straight team leader is also new.
It might be more than that, right?
Ahsoka and Sabine is 60.
Yeah, what
I
did the
think
Mandos
Mandos
come down?
they were 60 each. You're right.
Yeah.
And then I think of it. So yeah. So this is like you could have run this list with like so much skinnier stuff that it would not have been effective before.
You basically would have to cut an entire Mando.
Yeah, and also you wouldn't have had strike team leader, and also you wouldn't have had door gunners, and so yeah, like this is pretty slick. By the way, Ryder Azadi, is that the guy who increases his speed once, and then you have to recover him? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. That basically that would allow you to choose to dump one of these Mando units, I assume, like pretty deep in. I'm guessing that would be the Mando unit that's not attached to Sabine and Ahsoka. But what do I know?
Because maybe I don't
you
know.
could hide them with the bus, and then you wouldn't even have to worry about the dodge token until it's time for them to act.
Yeah.
This is a really cool list. So I think that was a good one to pick out. I am gonna be I'm gonna go back to one of the other people aside from Brian Bear who beat me up. In fact, this guy beat me up twice when I was playing at Worlds. This is Nicola Bukaya with a wonderful title of his list, "Don't Fly Too Close to the Sun." I'm always about references to the classics. In this case, we're talking about Icarus and Daedalus. I suppose that Sunfac is Daedalus in this situation, but the Geonosians didn't change. Sunfac got a lot cheaper. But then let me tell you what else is in this list, Mike, because that's like the exciting stuff. That on top of four, like you start out with 4 core or 3 core and an operative that can just kind of go anywhere.
No.
And then add to that 2 aqua droids. One of them has a link, the other one has a transponder. A Ion dwarf spider droid. Mike, are we going to sticky that?
Yes.
Okay, I know what your stickies are now. I figured it out by the end of the segment. And then Maul, along with his DRK-1 Sith probe droids, and Kalani Mike, and General Grievous. So, Mike, when you put all this together, you still have 12 acts, but it's 12 acts that includes 2 aqua droids and this is sort of weak on defense but highly mobile force that can kind of do what it needs to do. And then a DRK that will be doing its own thing and only be shootable when it wants to be. Dekas and a dwarf spider that gives you some versatility. And then on top of that, you have Maul and Grievous to go out and do some fighting. And then Kalani is helping out with some orders and getting some tokens out there. Like the thing that strikes me about this list is versatility. It feels like the sort of list that can respond to a wide variety of game situations and is sort of a little bit prepared for anything. What do you think about it?
It can kind of go wherever it wants, whenever it wants. I mean, between infiltrate on at least 3 units, plus you've got 5
triple movers,
5 guys that can act 3 times.
Yeah.
And the DRK probe droids I found even in kind of early Legion are, you just keep their it's incognito, right? Their
incognito
up, right? And then you're just like, okay, you can just decide to drop it now at the beginning of their activation and be like, I'm scoring this point. Hey, what's up?
It's different from the old days where the joke was that a DRK was gonna dive into the edge on breakthrough, but nobody was gonna shoot it, so therefore it couldn't score at the end of the game. They've changed it since then.
So you can steal kind of points with that and not get shot, on flanks. So I don't, there's a lot of flexibility here for sure. I still don't like Grievous, personally.
I mean, he's cheap, right? And so I guess what you could say is, well, so you you can't say that he should be Asajj because that would be a third operative.
Correct.
I would bet that if that flexibility was there, that Nicola may have chosen Asajj instead of Grievous. But Sunfac is so cheap, and he has the direct that he allows for that highly mobile set of triple movers to like do their thing by not spending a lot of cash, and then the rest of the army does the fighting, which is plenty, especially like when you're tossing in two Aqua Droid alphas that are they're both gonna be double aimed, because of the combo that he has set up with Kalani, and then one on linked and one on a transponder. Like they're gonna be able to do it on standing orders, and then the rest of the game, you can just kind of do whatever. I guess it's worth mentioning the command cards that are in here is that he has the Super Tech 3, and then he has Phantom Menace, Duel of the Fates at last, and then he has Supreme Commander and Training Your Jedi Arts. Those are probably the ones that I would pick. It sort of takes the best out of each of the various sources, and it creates this just like, again, versatility is the name of the game here. I really, really like this list. So this was a big tournament, like we mentioned, or on the bigger end of 28 players over there in Quebec. But it was not a multi-day, so I'll just mention that the other undefeated players were Yuan Sender, who had a Kalani plus Poggle plus Sunfac, a bunch of B2s, and then a couple an Ion Spider, a Flamer Spider, one Aqua, a couple Geonosians, just more of a smorgasbord, so to speak. Obviously, I probably should have chosen a French cuisine description rather than smorgasbord, but it's too late. Here I am. But that list is cool too. Mike, what do you think about the Poggle plus B2 combo? Because of course that means that you can heal a bunch of them if you ever want to.
I think it's a little bit of a gimmick, to be honest. I don't think it's reliable enough to be building around it. In that I still think the idea that you're going to have 4 B2 units all missing dudes is super likely.
He has 3, so I don't think he's like necessarily thinking he's ever going to get the full boat.
But like if I see my opponent has Poggle, and a bunch of B2s, like I'm just going to be focusing down
one B2 at a time,
one at a time, so that card doesn't matter.
You should probably be doing that anyway. But especially if Poggle's there, try not to put yourself into the place where he even is able to heal multiple models at once.
I mean, the other thing is that B2s are so meaty that, generally speaking, you don't want to be splitting your fire into them anyways. It's not like suppressing them is in any way helpful, right? So it's kind of whatever on that front, particularly if Poggle's there, because they really aren't panicking in that situation. Yeah. And, I think that you just if you're gonna shoot B2s, your game plan is to take them off the table. In which case, like, you just gotta focus units down, because they're too much health to be splitting your fire into multiple units.
Yeah, because like what can end up happening, and I've been on the receiving end of this as well, where my opponent like had to split fire, and then they do 1 wound on one B2, and they do another wound on another B2, and I'm just like, so I've taken 2 wounds, and I still have my full firepower. So I'm in good shape.
All right, good,
cool. Those B2 units, they weren't the super squads. They did each have like the extra B2, which I think is a pretty good buy. I will say that sometimes I am wondering if we're sleeping on the T series a little bit, because of the fact that it gives you the surge token. I think
the answer to that is yes, probably.
It is more expensive.
It is, but it definitely like ups the ante on that squad considerably.
Yeah. Reliable one is really good on a B2.
It is. The AI is obviously like one of the main functionalities.
That part doesn't matter.
It used to be one of the main reasons you took it, though, right?
Yeah. In the battle days of the old Blast B2 Ha, plus T series. For a while, that was sort of a dominant unit.
That was a scary unit.
Yeah, it was. When cover was good,
Yeah.
you really didn't want blast coming in at you. How things change, Michael. The number 4 list, the other remaining 3 and O, was Eric Pichet or Eric Pichette. He'll tell me, don't worry about it. But this was the very Frenchly titled La Boule de La Boule de Poids. Avol notre véhicule a trop de boule de poids. I probably screwed that up. I'm sorry. I'm trying, you guys. Anyway, I did look up what this means. It says I think it means the furball has taken control of the vehicle. Arg those furballs.
Ewoks. That's
and
what
it
I'm
is
hearing.
Ewoks. So this one is, it's relatively similar to the ones that you've seen before. Like, I feel like all Ewok lists start with, okay, put all 5 of your commanders on there.
Yep.
And that's your starting point. And, you can figure out what upgrades you're going to put on them later. And then after that, you're actually probably, surprisingly, putting 2 rebel troopers on there to max out your contingent of them, because it gives you a range 3 option, and it gives you a little bit of versatility. It also gives you people that Leia can actually share her tokens with, which can be pretty important for this list, because as everybody knows, Exemplar is only for like within faction or affiliation.
Out of curiosity, are there any heavy weapons on those rebel troopers?
One has an SX-21 with EMP droid poppers. This is probably going to go along with your sticky note, Mike. This is like the first time I see droid poppers in a competitive list in a while. The other one has an MPL 57 Ion Trooper.
Let's sticky that.
We're going to sticky that as well. And then after that, he has 2 skirmishers, which is the melee variety. They both have the Super Squad plus Call to Arms, which gives them a functionally once per game charge. That can be important, because then you don't need to rely on your Ewok 3 pip to give charge to them, and instead you can give Relentless to the 3 Ewok Slinger Super Squads, which I can tell you personally can be a real pain in the butt for your opponent to deal with when there's 30 black dice with Relentless coming in, and lest people forget that they all have target 1. And there is the potential to get them access to some surge tokens if C-3PO acts before them and feeds them off. I know, like the amount of token generation in Ewok lists is necessary for the list to work, because otherwise it's a bunch of like white save trash.
Yeah.
But B, it puts a lot of like old clone lists to shame. Yeah. Like old clone lists, and it definitely puts like every new clone list to shame in terms of the amount of token generation between the independent, the 3PO, the low grade aid and plus independent, the low grade soup plus aid that he gets to do for free, by the way, and then Leia's exemplar. It gets totally nuts. The next time I play Ewoks, I actually have like a printout that I'm going to use to organize my tokens.
Sure.
Because there's like instead of putting them next to the unit, just to put them on the paper, like, and have like squares associated with each unit. Because there's so many Ewok models.
It's tough
and you literally just like lose track of where the freaking tokens are. It's stupid. And then he finishes things off as is typical with the Chewie and the ATST. So this is very close to the list that like I first stole from Antoine Grenet months ago. It's sort of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I will say that like he had sacrificed things in a couple other places in order to make room for the Ion, which is more expensive than just having the double SX-21, which I believe is what Antoine was doing. It's definitely what I had been doing. But hey, Ewoks are good.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch in the French like top 16 too. So
yeah, as one might expect.
Yeah.
I really like that Antoine went with Tempest Force instead of Ewoks. That's just like it's very poetic.
Now that I have converted all my friends to playing Ewoks, I'm gonna crush them with chicken walkers.
Yeah. So a lot of cool lists all around. I think this is one of the most exciting parts about a new meta is seeing all the new lists that come out of it. And even for the couple lists that performed well that we didn't get to talk about, which I apologize for whatever we missed. Um, Pretty much everything that was performing well seems like it was touched in some way by these updates. A part of that is that people want to play with new toys. And especially like experienced players that are more likely to win a tournament anyway is, did they win because they play with the new toys, or did they win because they're good at the game and that they happen to be using new toys? It's like somewhere in the middle, almost certainly. It always is. That's the boring
It's very
answer.
situational, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just exciting lists all around, and I think that this is a good place, Mike, to let's empty the magazine of sticky notes to talk about what I assume is a point that you have relating to Ion.
Yes, you've come to the right conclusion.
Wow, real Sherlock over here. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think we're entering an interesting phase of the game,
Sure.
in a way that I don't think we've entered before. I'm not sure that it's the update has a ton to do with it. I think it's more that droids are just really, really good right now.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
And people are like, how do I deal with this? Scratch his head and is like, oh, Ion, things that carry Ion are like a lot better now. They don't tap. They're much cheaper generally.
They give critical one to the rebel gun.
They give critical one to the rebel gun.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest. I played a game against a good buddy of mine on Thursday, and I was playing my lat list, and he just had a bunch of incidental Ion in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? I've got a lat. Like what? Like it's just immediately, this 120 point unit is just immediately shut down by the fact that there's just incidentally just like 3 to 4 units of like Ion in the core, and the Ion in the core is not even really making a trade for anything anymore. It's like that's just the best gun in that slot.
Right.
I think you could make an argument the Rebel Troopers at the SX is better, but the Ion is definitely more versatile and keeps them at range. So I think the thing that I would like to talk about and kind of open up as a forum is like, is the meta to shift to kind of like put Ion in lists going to end up hedging out all of these, like, I would say marginal or on the margins vehicles in other factions that aren't droids. Like it's like we're trying to put door gunners on things to put these vehicles in lists. I'm going to be honest. If people are packing 3 Ion units in every Rebel and Imperial list, like I'm not bringing that lat to a tournament. Like it ain't happening.
No, that's totally fair.
And so. And it, to some extent, like ISPs, right? Like they kind of have had a resurgence. ISPs, I think, maybe can get away with it a little bit more because they can operate at a farther range. But eventually, they got to get in there to like be helpful to score points and stuff. Like that's one of the major advantages of the ISP is being able to like double move onto a point. But if you get Ioned, like that's not in the cards, right? Like that's just like off the table. And so, I don't know. Look, I'm not saying that this is a problem, but I am saying it's something that I'm watching because my red flag hit the field really quickly when I was like, this is just like hard countering what I'm bringing, but I'm not even the target. Like.
Well, and this is something that we've seen before to a certain extent. Which is to say that something becomes really powerful in the meta. The community will come up with a healthy and natural response, right? Like it is a healthy and natural response to try to put more Ion in your list if droids are good, and then also if vehicles are good in other contexts. Not everybody is really able to do that. We're going to get to that in a second. But the thing that can often happen is that it dulls the edge of the very powerful list to the point that they can actually like be at something close to parity. But then what happens is that the the list that might have been like close to parity before then get like pushed down. And the thing that I'm thinking of is that at the height of the Dark Trooper meta,
Sure.
that other vehicle list just felt like they were verboten because
Sure.
everybody was just cramming Impact in there.
Everybody had like Impact 15 in their
Yeah,
list.
exactly, because you had to deal with Dark Troopers.
Yeah, I actually think Impact and Ion share like a similar gameplay feel for they're kind of silver bullets to some extent. In that they are things that only do things in very specific circumstances. Impact is obviously less silver bullety than Ion is, I think. Ion is like devastating.
Well, so
Whereas
this is interesting, Mike. I guess maybe we're thinking of Silver Bullet. So okay. You're right. So you're thinking of Silver Bullet in the sense of Ion is the thing that will kill the werewolf, so to speak.
yes.
And Impact will merely wound it. So
Yeah,
maybe that's a lead bullet. Yeah.
well, and Impact is also like, I don't know. It's not. It's just you're still kind of like interacting with your opponent in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like in that your opponent is still allowed to interact with the things that you're doing. Ion is just like, yeah, nice saber tank, bro. Would be terrible if you didn't get to use it. You
Right.
know? Like,
Yeah.
and so um I don't know. I'm not, again, I don't know if this is a problem. I do think that we had not seen the repercussions, good or bad, of the ion options losing exhaust and getting cheaper, I think, until about right now, because people
Yeah.
really were not playing them yet. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at all of these tournaments and like I'm like filtering through like the top 12s of these tournaments, and there is ion everywhere. It's just like in the Empire and Republic lists because it's I mean but even in the CIS list I stickied it.
Empire and Rebel list, you mean?
Yes, sorry, that was what
Yeah.
I meant to say. But even in the
We'll get
separatist
there.
list, yeah, Nicholas, I'm gonna massacre his last name. So he's bringing ion spider
Nicolas,
droids.
Mike.
Nicolas, sorry.
You should be sorry.
I am sorry. He's bringing ion spider droids, right? Which I think we all can say in like a non-separatist meta is generally speaking a worse call than taking the other gun, which is I think like a little bit better on the average. Now, but the thing is, if you're gunning down separatists, like Ion's just like way better, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of vehicles running around now, and I think the thing that I'm like a little bit frustrated with is like the clone thing is like we're kind of trying to incentivize you to get away from taking mass clone balls and taking like vehicles and stuff. And I'm like, woo, let's take the vehicles, guys. And then I'm like, now I'm just like opening myself up to getting ripped apart by ion tokens because my two vehicles in the list, it's not like I have 6 targets. It's like I have 2 targets and they're gonna get ioned to death. you know?
Yeah, I do think that it feels particularly rough in guard, and I'm just going to double down on your Silver Bullet thing because I think the other way that I think of the term Silver Bullet today in Idiom Talk with Mike and Evan is the idea that it's something that like a Silver Bullet is only useful against a werewolf or a vampire, right? Like you
Right.
wouldn't want to shoot a Silver Bullet at a person because it's actually too soft for what you would want to get done. But in this case, it's actually it feels less like that because Ion helps you against droids and shields and vehicles all at once, whereas Impact only helps you against basically big armored vehicles. Against
Yeah.
small armored vehicles, it often doesn't even actually matter. And so like Ion just feels extra good for that reason.
Yeah, it feels like it's supposed to be a silver bullet against droids, and it just happens that it decimates any non-droid list that has like 1 or 2 vehicles in it because all of a sudden, like those ion guns just get pointed at it at those targets, and you're just ioned. It's not like you're not taking damage. These days you're taking damage. Like the ion token's going down. You know.
And I'm gonna risk making a declarative statement. Those often come back to bite podcasters when they do these, but I'm just gonna say something to the Republic players. If you're thinking about spending 100 points in commandos, honey, just leave them at home because their shields are not gonna matter. And like I don't know. I feel like you'll have just been spending money on something that is functionally a much more killable unit than it normally would be.
Well, and that's kind of like a secondary effect that we haven't even talked about, right? Is that like, Mando's shields gets knocked,
Yep.
like all these like specialty units
More
that
reason to
have
not take the Sabine shield also. Just
absolutely
like take the
right.
lion and the supplies.
There's just like a bunch of random like ion being thrown into these lists.
Yep.
And again, like look, I think these players are making good meta calls. I think droids are
Totally.
good enough that you should be doing whatever you can to knock them down a peg because I do
Yep.
think they at least based on the last iteration
We're
of data
we're
we've
gonna
had.
confirm next week that they're still on top.
Yeah, yeah.
I can tell you that now.
I suspect that that is very true. I do think that like to some point, I think what's interesting about this is I think that droids are also shifting a little bit so that the thing that is a silver bullet against them is actually not because they're starting to play geos instead of droids so that the CIS players are showing up and they're like haha nice ion dude and like ion my dudes with wings where um which
Ooh,
is a
that
little bit
electricity
hype.
felt really nice on my wings, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Speaking of nice ion, bro. Here's where I'm gonna attract more flack. I feel like I'm just like a flag magnet today. I'm just gonna gripe a little bit about something that has been gripeable since some would say the very beginning of the faction of the Galactic Republic,
mm,
which is to say that GAR players, aside from droid poppers, okay, fine. They have access to one source of ion, which is the ion gun on a bark. Now that did also lose its expend, and it did just get cheaper in the new update, but it's still it still makes your speeder slow.
it
A
does.
speeder that is more killable than the X-34 is because it does not have armor.
I mean, it's also
Uh,
30 points cheaper than the X-34.
is it?
Once they're loaded up, yeah.
Once they're loaded up, that's also shooting way more dice than the bark is and at longer range. So, I
It's not
mean,
that many more dice
isn't it seven?
on the
Uh,
on the
or actually, I guess you're right. It's not that many more dice.
no, it's not.
It is dice that you can shoot while
Go
like you can
on.
shoot all of them at range
Make your
four.
terrible case.
Yeah, go ahead, make your terrible case. Um, in any case, the X-34 is less killable, and there you can also shoot twice with the X-34, which is like a big difference between that and the Bark. Um,
It is.
all that said, I have never found Barks to be useful when they're slow. Um, I have always like been on the team of the point of the Bark is that it moves speed 3 with a medium-sized base, and that it can like dive on the enemy. And that was sometimes useful in Legacy Legion. That's theoretically more useful now, especially now that they are cheaper. But if you're doing that, it means that you don't have access to the ion. And maybe it's like a personal thing that when I am looking
It's
at my
it's
list and I'm
it's a
like,
personal thing.
okay, but so you, Mike, are putting ions on your barks. Is
I'm
that is
not.
that the
I'm
case?
putting guns on my barks. It's not ion right now. I
Well,
think I put
so
the twin laser on them
sure, sure.
last week. I definitely think that like you could put the ion on and not feel bad about it.
Yeah, it feels so limiting though to have that be your only ion option compared to
Oh,
like
yeah.
compared to the options that everybody else has.
I
It just
don't
feels like
think
kind of rough.
it's definitely the thing about it is it's like putting ion on a specialty unit.
Yeah,
Like Rebels and Imperials are just like tossing them in the core slot, which is I think significantly different than putting it on a unit that has a very specific role in your army generally.
yeah,
The bark has a role. A core units in Rebel and Empire are just kind of like in Rebels they're pretty filler. They're like I'm taking 3 of these and probably not much more and I'm just going to slam some ion onto them to make them reasonable.
yeah.
And in Empire, I mean, ion snows are they're just good. but they're not. They don't have to do anything specific. They just kind of march forward, take some points, and shoot. And
Right.
because they have steady, they can kind of do both of those things at the same time. Um, so
And then the droid option is that they can just like sit back there and take ion shots
yeah,
and sort of be a turret.
I would generally put the droid ion option is in a comparable place to Republic, frankly. Like I don't think that it's like that dramatically different. I will say that you know, I think droids just tend to have the extra points to find the ion, I think a lot of the time in their list if they want it. Like the idea of like giving up something to just like stick a ion bark in my list is a bullet. Seems
That
tough.
gets back to the smushness of Republic points
It
because
does.
an ion bark is 80 points for
Yeah.
something that is still pretty darn killable. Whereas even the droid spider, it has armor 3. It can sit back there, range 4. It doesn't need to move if it doesn't want to. It also has access to the precise 2 plus aim token thing
Mhm.
that makes his shot like more reliable. So I don't know. It just it yeah, y'all can say that I'm complaining or whatever. I'm sure that maybe I shouldn't say I'm sure. Maybe someday Republic will get a source of ion in the anti-droid faction that didn't come out in the core set of the original release of Republic. But it is not this day.
Yeah, I suspect what's gonna have to probably happen here is either separatists are gonna have to get worse, or Ion's probably eventually gonna have to change. I don't know. I'm a little
I
bit
I think the meta will. I think the meta will shake out. I don't think that they're going to have to change it.
maybe
Uh,
that's very possible.
yeah,
I'm interested to see how that plays, but I definitely think that if it stays status quo, like non-CIS lists are just like not gonna run vehicles, you know.
right. I mean, and for what it's worth, I do agree with you. Is that theoretically, if you wanted to sort of take advantage of the fact that if people are cramming ion everywhere, that if you have a trooper only list, and Republic is obviously quite good at that,
Yeah.
then yeah, their ion and their impact is all completely wasted.
Yeah.
And part of the name of the game is if you're in a situation where your opponents spend points on keywords that completely don't matter against you, then you have a little bit of an advantage from the start of it.
I think my thesis here a little bit is in Rebels and Empire. I'm not actually sure that they're paying for it anymore. Is part of what I think I'm trying to say.
So I
It,
think that's a good trend
specifically in Empire.
in Empire, right?
I
Because
think Rebels like they have other options for their core units. I'm not really sure how much better the SX-21 is over the MP-57. Like it's obviously much cheaper,
right,
which is a real cost.
yeah.
But
The,
with the snowtroopers, I'm just like, yeah, I think you're just taking the ion gun.
the Ion Rebel feels like a choice of like a premium unit, like you're paying for the extra icing on top.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's a good transition, just like talking a little bit about the fact that the snow with the Ion and Imperial March is such good value.
It's really good. And it's what, like 76, 78?
It's something like that.
It might be cheaper than that. It might be 68, actually. Sorry, it's 72.
72. That is a pretty good deal for 72.
Yeah.
It's and so like I've played with them a couple times, and the thing that I hadn't really thought about per se was that the the speed 2 move at the end, it gives you like extra room for peekaboo shots. Because
Yes.
like there's no point in the peekaboo shot if you can't actually effectively hide after the initial shot. But now you can poke out at speed 1, and then go speed 2 afterwards and really hide your unit. That and like it's also lovely on the flamer, especially when you add in the Blizzard 3 pip
Yeah.
to do a speed 2 and a speed 3 move. But even just on its own, like it's good for folks to remember that a speed 1 move plus a speed 2 move is actually equivalent to the fictional speed 4 that doesn't actually exist. But if there was such thing as a speed 4 that was 2 inches longer than the speed 3, that's what would be equivalent to what you're doing. So you're going Mando, like the length of what a Mando does, plus 2 more inches,
And shooting.
And shooting,
Yeah.
and so it is really nice. I feel like the Ion Snow with March is actually like opening up. Uh, it makes an Empire list feel so much more loose than it did before. And it's not like I usually am not playing Empire, but I certainly know the feel of it. And now it feels really different when you have going that fast. That's also taking a decent shot with Surge to Hit and critical and an ion and impact. It's got like everything.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a world where Empire lists end up on somewhere between 4 and 6 of these in most lists, you know.
They were doing it already before Imperial March existed.
That's what I mean. Yeah, and I just like, you know, I don't. That's a lot of ion.
It's a
I
lot
don't
of
know. That's a
ion.
lot of
And
ion,
so like
man.
if you're up against droids, you're like if you think about the number of like activations that you're taking away, or the number of actions at the very least that you're taking away, uh, and go, that's something.
No, it's
Ion
huge.
Ion
Yeah.
Snows with March are like to me, it's a bigger. To me, I think it may be a more important like shift than just the fact that riot controls are playable now. In terms of Empire list building. We'll see how things shake out, but yeah, early results are that it's very impressive. Did this gun even have critical one before, Mike? I don't even remember. Like
It
in
did
the old
not
days.
originally have critical
Yeah,
one. It was
so
originally, I think,
impact ion
I
with
think it was
and
impact
tapping.
ion exhaust. You know.
Yeah, so
Um,
it used to be a joke before, and now it's funny. One pseudo edition later, it's like it's to me it's like the most bang for your buck heavy amongst the core and empire, and it's up there in terms of like the core in general.
yeah, I definitely think we've entered a world where ion is probably too cheap. I don't
Could be.
know. I don't know how much it should cost. You know,
Yeah,
it's
well,
it's weird. It's one of those things where it's like if it's too expensive, it's not any good at all, and if it is good, it's probably too cheap. It's a weird keyword in that way. You know,
yeah, it does do a lot.
it either hoses you or it doesn't, and it's kind of binary in that. I mean, that's how it works, right? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
um, and so yeah, I don't know. Um, I just wanted to coalesce all my sticky notes into the observations
Yeah,
that
no,
I've
I think
made.
it's a
I
good
think about the
discussion.
meta.
We didn't. I certainly didn't expect that we would like be doing an ion segment, but like I think you were very observant in terms of noticing that a lot of these high performing lists were running it, and it does make one wonder like if there had been maybe a little bit more ion over there in France, like would Antoine have had a tougher time getting to the top with the Tempest list, where the Ion is very good against that list, and it certainly has no access to Ion on its own.
Yeah,
So it's interesting stuff. I do think that instead of maybe a rules change, I do agree with you that something that I do see as being potentially likely is to make Ion stuff more expensive generally.
yeah.
Uh,
I think that that's like the likely scenario.
except
I
for
do
Spark,
think.
please.
Yeah, I mean, I it feels like something you should have to pay more
Yeah.
for. And before it was like this was like a one shot weapon, you know,
Right. Right.
kind of deal. So it was like you fired the ion off, and obviously like nobody really played the
It
ion
didn't. It
stuff at
wasn't played
that point.
before, right? So I think
Yeah.
they were right to change the exhaust out.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that. I actually think that Ion as a game mechanic is just bad. I get that it's super thematic in the
Oh,
Star Wars universe.
that's
Um,
Mike's hot take of the day,
I don't think that's a hot take at
sponsored by the
all.
Fifth Trooper.
I think Ion as a mechanic is just not good. Yeah.
I mean, it is thematic in the way that it works, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, have you ever played Battlefront and you know
Oh yeah,
taking
but
doing the thing to the AT-AT?
oh
I
hey,
just think
let's go older school. X-Wing.
Sure, yeah.
Ion was the name of the game. Speaking of which, I should mention that those of you who are members of the Patreon should check out the video that me and my brother made ranking all the Star Wars games. We had a really good time.
I looked at the thumbnail on it, and it was like there was way more games on there than I had anticipated.
And that thumbnail is when it was half full at the end of part 1, Mike.
Yeah,
there were a lot of games, and Greg and my brother Greg and I have played most of them because we were really cool kids. Just hanging out at home playing Star Wars games. Yeah. So do check that out. I think I'm going to make that. I'm eventually going to make that like open to YouTube so that people can listen. But yeah, so Ion is thematic, but you don't like the way that it works in the game, Mike.
No, I mean, to be honest, I never have. I don't think that's like a rewriting the rules problem. I think we had this problem before. It just wasn't relevant because it wasn't good, and so I actually think that Ion itself as a mechanic within the game has always been bad in that, again, it's a silver bullet that if you are affected by it really sucks. It's like it like takes your unit that you spent 150 points on and just immediately is like, yeah, it kind of doesn't do anything anymore. And
it is kind of, it feels bad.
It's a feels bad, right? And again, it's always been that way for the entirety of Legion's lifetime. It's just up until now, I think that it has been so bad that it didn't matter. It was just like, in the same way that, for a large majority of Dark Troopers' lifetime, they were so bad it didn't matter, like,
yeah,
it's like, okay, whatever, and then all of a sudden, something happens and you're like, oh man, this really matters all of a sudden, and it's just like, it's because this mechanic is not good, but it didn't see a ton of table time because, whatever.
Yeah, it's tough from a game design perspective, though. Like, what else would you do with Ion aside from taking away actions?
Yeah, I don't know. You could make it like do not double damage, but like +1 damage or something. I don't know what that looks like.
Fair.
I'm not going to pretend to have the answer there. I think that there's a bunch of things you could do. I think the easiest thing is that you got to price Ion for. I think Will Pagani said something to the effect of on one of the other casts, and he said it on our cast too, that you have to price things as like their best use case scenario. Ion is definitely not priced in its best use case scenario right now. If we're holding true to that tenet, which I think we could have a different conversation on. But like if
only we had the time, Michael.
Right? If that's how we're pricing things, Ion is definitely incorrectly priced. So, we'll see. I'm not sure how big of a deal it is. I just I was really excited to like get my vehicles out and like mess around with door gunners and stuff. And after I've seen everybody's competitive list, I'm like, nope, you're going back on the shelf. Like, sorry guys, this cool upgrade's gonna have to wait.
Back to the shadow lat.
Yeah. Which it is what it is. It's possible that door gunners was never going to be good enough anyways. Like, it probably is like more of like a fun thing than a like good thing. But I don't know, that AA5 list with the door gunners seems interesting. But, again, if you run into like a 5 Ion snow trooper list, like those buses are starting to look a little bit less good.
I will say that at least there is one vehicle aside from the Bark, funny enough, that can sort of get away with being ionized, which is speeders that don't have a break value. The Bark can run to the place where it gets no actions when it's ionized and broken.
I definitely ran into that. I was like, oh man, I'm broken and I have an Ion token. This really sucks.
I do a compulsory move. That's the end of my activation. Oof.
Yeah. I was like, this is not good.
Right, but like a swoop or an Imperial speeder bike, like they aren't completely crippled, right, by the Ion token in the way that it can, versus something like a lat, where if it can't move, shoot, then that's a big problem. A speeder can at least move and shoot.
I would go back to your point about Barks and Speed 3 and Speed 2 being such a big deal. I mean, if you think Speed 3 and Speed 2 is a big deal, losing a movement action every turn.
Speed 2 with one move is not great.
Also super big. Or even Speed 3 with only one move is like also not very great. Like that, it takes away the reason that you're bringing that unit, right? Like if I knew that my speeder was just going to get Ioned all game, I wish I just had another core unit at that point.
Yeah, I'll just take a shotgun core unit for like a little bit cheaper actually even.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that said, interesting new meta. Lots to see how it shakes out. We are going to get into the stats next episode. We're going to get real dorky about that stuff, and we can let the opinions really fly at that point.
There's one other thing that I want to talk about.
Sure. Go ahead.
We can make it short. But I've been trying ARF Troopers with Strike Team Leader.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How does that feel?
With Padmé. It would feel great if I didn't feel obligated to take Bad Batch. I'm sorry, I'm not even sure it would feel great, but I'm feeling like I have to take Bad Batch now, which means the only configuration that the ARF Trooper has a chance of being good in is like off the table because you can't take 2 Echoes.
What about the RPS, Mike? Hashtag uncumbersome.
Evan, my boy. Yeah, so I don't know.
We need a new gimmick, we're not like complaining about Yoda or riot control as much, so let's just like go full bore into the hashtag uncumbersome movement.
Sure. I will say Padmé was amazing.
In what way? It's like, aside from token sharing, like what else did she do? Or token giving, I should say.
She was just like a 50-point unit that like ran around that my opponent like really was like, you know what? You can have that unit. Like this is a 6/1 unit. It's got like 1 or 2 dodge shoguns because I moved a couple times or whatever. And it's like, it's actually going to be kind of work to kill that thing, and it doesn't actually do damage to me. So I'm going to shoot your other units. So Padmé is just like over here like, woo, I'm taking these points, guys. And just having a party generally. I think for her cost, like I think she's probably, particularly in a place where like the rest of the Republic units have like got jacked up in price.
Right.
I think she's in particularly good value. I do think Strike Team Leader, I think you're just taking arcs still. Because I don't think what I did find was that my initial thesis was ARF Troopers would be a better option with Padmé because they would be closer together. I'm going to be honest, Padmé was just getting in there every game and still not dying. I think ARC Troopers would have been right up there with her, probably killing stuff with her and also giving her like backup. Whereas the ARF Troopers just don't have the action economy to like be staying close.
Yeah, the lack of mobility is definitely something that hurts. I think, my theory had been that since backup goes away at range 2, which is the only range that ARC Troopers matter at anyway, and that you're often going to be running into melee threats, which, for if Padmé gets charged by like an opposing ARC Trooper before she moves, she's just like instantly dead.
I think it's more just like you're kind of hedging against like chip damage from range, Padmé's on that point, and like it would be nice to put a couple wounds into her, and now you're like, I have backup 2 plus cover, and I have a nimble dodge token. It's like okay.
I definitely am on your side that if you have like low 50s points to spend, and you already have your 3 core, then you should probably be doing Padmé instead of like a naked core.
She's definitely better than a naked core.
Yeah, I am solidly with you on that point. Could just for many reasons that we did talk about in the last episode, so I won't rehash all of them. But that's cool. Like Padmé being playable is a thing that hasn't been the case since New Legion, in my opinion, anyway. And so I am glad that we were at that place. I do wish that her command cards were a little bit less clunky, just because
her 2-pip's still good.
Her 2-pip is obviously still fine. Like free moves and or tokens is cool, but Secret Mission has its own issues that we're not going to rehash also. And
I mean, she doesn't have Secret Mission anymore, right? Like she just like that keyword isn't on her, right?
In some lists, maybe you're going to be giving her Inspire 1.
I
but
think
only if like you have nothing else but time.
you need to think about Padme as if she like only had a 2-pip. I think is how you need to like.
I think that's fair.
She's like a 50-point character that has a 2-pip, and like maybe a 1-pip if you have like trusted agent in your list to like hand an order to Bad Batch or something.
Just give her authoritative back, AMG. Like, come on, like that keyword is not breaking anything. Exemplar was the problem.
Authoritative definitely allows you to do some wonkier stuff, I think.
Yeah,
This-
the
this
2-pip with
edition-
authoritative was, yeah, I guess that's fair.
I think this edition is more prone to that card being a problem, authoritative being a problem than it was before. And
Interesting.
in the sense that they have very cracked down on handing out orders for, I'm not going to say free, but bending the rules to get orders on things that normally don't have orders. I guess unless you're an Empire, in which case, like, have all the stuff.
Well, but they needed them, right? Like they needed the orders most of all.
I'm not.
Yeah, we're not besmirching.
That was kind of a joke. But you know, I definitely think that I'm not sure that authoritative would be a problem, but I could see it potentially be an issue. You know,
The real issue is that her command cards were designed for an authoritative unit, and that, like, especially her 1-pip and also her 2-pip. So
her
anyway,
1-pip is just it's not good enough. And,
no, you don't want to do a 1-pip to order your 52-point unit.
Unless you have trusted agent and you're tossing it to Bad Batch.
And tossing to Bad Batch. That is a thing. But I don't know. You're probably just doing a different 1-pip anyway. I am gonna we're gonna close things off, but I'm just gonna pretty briefly say that I'm gonna link to the document that we used in this particular tournament in the show notes. But a couple weeks ago, I played with Izzy Gambliel as my partner. We played in a team tournament together. Yep. And so I should mention, Mike, that this was sponsored by Paradox Games. They did a very lovely job. It's a very good store down there in the Olympia, Washington area.
Oh, it's not the people that made Stellaris, huh?
No, sorry to disappoint you there. But this was
a game that is better than Civ 7, just so we're clear.
Yeah, we'll save that for the After Dark podcast on 4X Games, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point if we survive long enough as a website. But this was it was 8 teams, so 8 teams of 2 for a total of 16 players, and it used basically a variation on rules that had been used in last year's Adepticon teams event, and they sort of like 2.6 them up, so to speak, and they added some secondaries that were fun. And the basic rules were that battle forces were considered unique, and that your team had to, within that, be the same overall faction. So there were some command card hijinks you could do, but it had to be within factions, so you couldn't do like totally crazy stuff like, mixing Yoda and Vader or, whatever the hell you could do.
So you couldn't play Shadow Collective at all?
You could, however, play Shadow Collective. They were considered to be non-unique. I don't think anybody actually did play Shadow Collective as far as I can tell, but we had a great time. Izzy and I, there were only two rounds because the rounds take extra long. We went 2-0, and then the other 2-0, the winner, I should say, because they got more VPs, was Isaiah and Caitlin Wallace, the world champ, or I should say the top woman at Worlds and her husband is what the team was called, which is an accurate statement. Izzy and I, of course, went by Louis Vuitton, which is an old team name from back in the Yavin-based Team League days.
I was going to say, I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, right. It has been a while. The Wallaces were playing droids. Droids are good. They were especially good in this format. I won't bore you with the details of why, but there were certain tokens that droids have access to all of them that ended up being pretty good for the primary condition in one of these. But Izzy and I, we did a combo of a standard Rebel and Ewoks. And a big part of why we did that was to take advantage of maybe the most exploitive command card combo that you can do, which is to say that you play Brains and Brawn and Orbital Bombardment at the same time, which means that you can start by doing a move and shoot with Chewie the ATST, as you normally would, and then you can follow that up by doing bombards with Leia at infinite range, and Sharpshooter 2 to go. You take an 8 dice attack, surge to crit. You take another one. You take another one. So it was double rainbow plus 2 reds, surge to crit, Sharpshooter 2, and we surprised one of our opponents with it, and the other one I think was able to see it coming because that was round 2. It was a lot of fun for us. Was it fun for our opponents? You'll have to ask them. In round 2, it got especially wonky because unless I was cheating, and I'm pretty sure that I wasn't by doing this,
I'll let you know.
All of us agreed at the table that this wasn't cheating, which was that Chewie did a double move, and then Leia did her bombardment. And because Leia is the attacker, Chewie got to add his dice and not lose incognito, because he was not making the attack for any of those, but rather it's sort of like a weird version of the old school fire support. This plus the Rex 1-pip being the only like format where something like the old fire support exists anymore, as far as I know anyway. But
that's legal unless it's been FAQ'd.
Yeah. Okay. So glad to know I wasn't cheating. So yeah, like you had this ATST that my opponent on like that side could not shoot at, but who was like tossing all these dice into all the attacks. And then the whole thing was nutty. Like everybody there sort of knew what the stakes were, and that the store was giving out like real gift certificates as prizes. So like there was stuff to fight for, and there were best painted and all that other good stuff. And they were very generous with that stuff, I should mention. So it was like overall just a really, really good time. And so like all of this is just to say that I think that as long as you can get to that at least 14, but ideally more player count with a team tournament with teams of 2, it really is a fun format. And like you just accept the fact that there's going to be some broken stuff. There's going to be some jankiness. There's going to be some homebrew in the form of the objectives, because none of the baseline objectives for New Legion like work for team basically at all.
Why?
Just because some of them would actually like score too quickly if like each player was allowed to score from them, and also some of them have too few POIs, and so like it would end up being like a fracas. Like on intercept the transmissions, there's nothing about teams that would make that more interesting. On close the pocket, there's nothing about teams that would make it more interesting.
Sure, I guess I feel like you could just like change blue and red player in those situations to just be blue team, red team, and that way like you're scoring the same amount of points and stuff. I understand that that's not like an interesting deviation.
It's not interesting,
from
and it's not
missions,
interactive. The thing that these objectives did was that it was blue, green, red, yellow player, and so it like split the scoring in half and then toned it down per player like a little bit. But it made it so that each player like had a significant amount of agency in the way that the final scores were done. I don't think the baseline objectives would have really been fun. But like I said, since you're cheating anyway, just like add in the homebrew element with the objectives. I will copy that onto there, and I really would encourage, if you're a TO out there, like take a look at the format. Look at the fact that one of the secondary objectives literally involves like flicking objective tokens onto the board and seeing where it lands, and then just like that should tell you everything you need to know about the seriousness of this. But it also made it very fun because Izzy, I'm sorry to call you out in the podcast, but Izzy's very first flip of the token, like it was an unlucky roll. So it hit his corner and then it rolled all the way to like basically the entire middle of the board, and you had to contest it. And so I was like loudly sort of complaining at Izzy so that my opponents could hear about, well, I guess I'll just like take this on my shoulders. So what I did was that I scouting partied, then double move Wicket to just like have him rush onto the token. And meanwhile, like Din was coming from the other side to try to rush the token himself. And luckily Wicket was able to grab it and then like hide behind a rock so that Din had to go somewhere else. But that's just the kind of like inane garbage fun stuff that came up with this format.
Sure.
So I really would encourage people to check it out. It's dumb, but it's very fun. Any questions about how team format worked, Mike?
Nah, you're good, man. I think you covered it. I have not played a multiplayer version of Legion ever. It sounds interesting. I think it sounds to me like some command cards need to get banned in that format.
I mean, hey, we didn't win, right? So it can't be that good.
Yeah.
Maybe that's on us. And,
perfect.
We should have just scored more VPs.
Impeccable logic.
Yeah, we did go 2-0 though. There's not as much broken stuff as you would think.
There's less broken stuff now with a lot of the command card reworks on text.
That's fair.
You know, it used to be, I think, that like maybe it still is actually like if you play like Luminous and take that clankers, like everybody can just take aims and fire at range, you know.
There's fewer effects that only depend on having a face up compared to what there used to be.
You certainly can't entire Legion in new ways to motivate them now because
Right.
has been banned.
Well, that's true, but I mean, I think that there were a lot of cards that the only thing that mattered was a face up and not that it was ordered from that command card.
Yeah, I would say it was probably like 50-50 on whether it had the specific, like, it's got to be this command card text.
Yeah. I will say that I think that there's still some fun you can do with Tax Strike, right? Because that only depends on face ups. If I'm not wrong,
it is, but like you can only get so many special forces. I guess with two players, you can get way more special forces in the list. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know that doesn't feel quite as busted as doing 3 Chewie plus Leia attacks, but
I don't know.
It's pretty good.
6 infiltrating units with tactical and steady could be a problem.
I think the only problem would just be that then you have a bunch of ISF units hanging out there.
Sure.
So you're sort of like depending on like really killing everything you need to with the alpha. But I digress. It's a very fun format, and people should check it out. But Mike, you got anything else before we land the plane?
I'm gonna stall here to look up the episode number, but other than that, I think we're good.
I think we're at 23.
I think you're right. Are we ready to go? Are you done?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right.
I know. And again, Mike, it's less than 2 hours after the edit.
And we'll see.
You keep saying that. It will be less than 2 hours.
You're forgetting to add on the time at the beginning of the episode and the time for the credits. Like, that's going to add.
Good point.
You know.
Well, I'm not going to cut this out. I'm going to be a brave man.
Okay.
That means we need to land the plane right now, Mike. You do it.
All right. This has been the Notorious Scoundrels, Season 4, Episode 23. I'm Mike.
I'm Evan.
Stay fresh. Cheese bag.
Stop going so slow.